Today we have the Logitech K580 Slim Multi-Device Wireless Keyboard. Bit of a mouthful. The K580 is a very fine looking low profile keyboard with a nice looking trackpad, a phone stand, and the option to either connect to a device through Bluetooth or a wireless USB receiver. And it also has the ability to easily switch between two different paired devices with a click of a single button. On top of that though, this version of the K580 that I currently own is the Chrome OS edition of the K580, meaning that the keys have been specially customized to work well with Chrome OS. So there's obviously a lot going for this keyboard, and after using it for almost 2 years now, I feel like I have a pretty good sense as to what it's like to use this keyboard. So today in this video, I want to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly of the K580 keyboard, and on top of that, I want to also get to answering the question, is this keyboard worth buying in the year 2021? Speaking of things that I'll get to though, I need to get to being transparent right now. Here at Chrome Tech, I strive to be as transparent and as forthcoming as possible so people can trust this channel. So in that spirit, I want to let you know that I personally purchased this keyboard with my own personal funds. All the opinions expressed in this video are my own personal opinions. Nobody has paid for or sponsored this video, and no entire person other than yours truly has reviewed or approved the contents in this video prior to its posting on the Chrome Tech YouTube channel. Along with this disclaimer, I want to make clear that I'm reviewing the Chrome OS edition of the K580 keyboard here. It's important to make this clarification because a more standard Windows or Mac oriented version of the K580 keyboard does exist. Okay, with that said, let's get to the review. Look, I know I already said some of this in the initial intro for this video, but I really just want to express how good looking the K580 keyboard is. It just looks really nice. It's very thin, it's very sleek, it's got this really nice color combination of black with a touch of light gray. It's got this minimalistic vibe, which I generally tend to be attracted to. Maybe it's because of that, but I just really like how this looks. And it's probably a good thing that I like the K580 keyboard's color design, because this is the only color design that the K580 keyboard seems to come in. If you're into the more flashy pink or flashy neon yellow or whatever keyboard, then yeah, the K580 probably isn't for you. The back of the keyboard has these nice rubber feet, which prevents the keyboard from sliding around on the desk. You also get a clear view of the keyboard's built-in tilt here. There is definitely a part of me that wishes that this tilt was adjustable in some way, shape, or form, but I'm also willing to acknowledge that adjustable tilts or keyboards that have that kind of feature often don't tend to be designed in this sort of manner. Having said that, if you're someone who really needs an adjustable tilt or something like that with your keyboard, the Logitech K580 may not be for you. The overall build quality here is pretty solid. The whole thing is admittedly made with plastic and it's not super high quality stuff, but it doesn't feel like overly cheap plastic. You know how some keyboards use obviously cheap plastic and you can feel it when you're typing on it? Yeah, this keyboard doesn't have that. Now, most of the keyboard, including the keys themselves, have this matte texture to it, so that may be part of the reason why I feel like it's not so cheap feeling. To explain the matte texture in layman's terms, it just feels a little rough and a little grainy when you're touching the keyboard. Not to an extent where I personally find it to be overly distracting or anything like that. It's just, it does have a texture to it. Personally, this texture hasn't really affected my typing experience whatsoever, but that's just me. Depending on what your keyboard preferences are like, I wouldn't be surprised if some people don't like this texture at all and would find it to be distracting when typing on. But that I feel depends on who you are and what your preferences are like. There's one part of this keyboard that doesn't completely have the aforementioned matte texture, and it's this light gray bit. Now, portions of this light gray bit do actually have the same matte texture that you find on the rest of the keyboard, but portions of it also have this more glossy, plasticky texture to it. Now, this light gray bit actually plays two important roles on this keyboard. One, it serves as the main cover for the compartment that houses the batteries and the wireless USB receiver. This small compartment on the keyboard, by the way, very nice design. I like it very much, especially when considering how these USB wireless receivers tend to be very easy to lose. They're very small. It's nice that there's a spot in the keyboard where you can just place it in and just forget about it. But let's go back to the light gray cover. The cover is designed to slide on and off the keyboard, and it's a nice way to cover this compartment. Well, I say it's nice, but I mean that in the sense that it's a nice concept, because this light gray cover here, it's not great. Like, it doesn't feel terrible by any measure, but it's weak and it's very flimsy, and this is especially true with the hinges. And that's problematic because the hinges on this thing are essentially what snaps this cover onto the keyboard. If one or two of these hinges breaks, you're just going to have problems trying to place this cover back onto the keyboard, and It's not a very good flaw to have for this thing, and it's just, it frustrates me because remember, I just gave this thing credit for having a slot where you can actually place this wireless USB receiver into. There's no point to this if the cover easily breaks. And on the internet, there are quite a few reports of K580 owners having to deal with broken hinges. Now, I haven't broken mine yet specifically, but it does seem like it's a matter of time. In fact, just looking at this now, one of my hinges, I don't know if the camera can capture this, but one of my hinges already looks like it's about to fall off. I've actually been trying to open and close the cover as little as possible to avoid breaking these hinges. But, even with my careful use, one of my hinges already looks like it's about to break off. So could Logitech have maybe designed this slightly better? Yes, if you're someone who thinks that they'll be regularly opening and closing this thing as a way to store their wireless USB receiver, I don't know. Might not be the best keyboard for you. I see this as a design flaw. The other role that this cover serves, and I mentioned this in the intro, and as you can tell from the dent, is it serves the role of a phone stand, or as Logitech likes to call it, a phone cradle, and I think it's perfectly fine. By the way, if you were wondering if you could place a tablet in this slot, you might be able to, depending on the weight, but it's not recommended. There is a big risk of the tablet tipping over when you have it in this phone stand / phone cradle. When Logitech considered the weight distribution with this thing, they really weren't thinking of making this a tablet stand. Back to the more important aspect of this keyboard though. Let's talk about the keys. The keys are fairly basic. No fancy indents, arcs, inward curves, etc. None of that. Basic, flat, square, and rectangular keys. They're a nice size and they're spaced very well on the keyboard itself. The K580 uses scissor switch keys, so this is definitely no mechanical keyboard or anything like that. It comes with the classic mushy feedback and short key travel that one has come to associate with scissor switch keys. It's definitely something that the keyboard purists are gonna stay away from. After spending long periods typing with this thing though, I can say that I personally don't mind this style of keyboard at all. Also, the usage of scissor switch keys here is partially what allows the keyboard to be as quiet as it is. Now, to be clear, these keys aren't silent in any way, shape, or form, but it's not loud and it's also not super quiet. It's this medium sound leaning towards quiet, which is a very strange way of phrasing it. Since it's a tad bit hard to describe, here's the audio or video of what it sounds like when I type on the K580 keyboard with this microphone right above it. Whether the keyboard sound becomes an issue depends on your work environment as well as your sensitivity to that type of thing. I do, however, think that objectively speaking, this is one of the quieter keyboards out there. It's important to note that this keyboard doesn't come with backlit keys or RGB, so if you really need that kind of thing, this keyboard probably isn't for you. Since we discussed keys though, I want to mention the easy switch keys, which easily toggle us between the two devices that are paired with the K580. I say paired here, but as explained previously, what the switch does is it switches between connecting to a device paired through Bluetooth and connecting to a device paired through this wireless USB receiver. Switch 1 connects the keyboard to the Bluetooth paired device, while switch 2 connects to the device with a wireless USB receiver. Long pressing switch 1, by the way, is what puts the keyboard into Bluetooth pairing mode. The easy switch keys are fairly straightforward, and to be honest with you, the initial setup with this keyboard was really easy. Depending on what device you're using, it's very much a plug and go type situation. Back to the overall keyboard though, it's not particularly heavy or big, but it's got a little bit more weight to it than it looks. In measurements, the keyboard's width is around 14.5 inches, while the keyboard's length is around 5.5 inches. These dimensions make it a bit awkward to carry this keyboard around. When there are truly compact and portable wireless keyboards out there, like the K380, it doesn't really make sense to use the K580 as a portable device. The way I look at it, the K580 is better suited to be a desk keyboard that you can keep as a part of your desk setup. Logitech claims that this keyboard can last 24 months on a single pair of AAA batteries. I don't know how true that claim is, but I bought this particular K580 in November of 2019, and it's currently August of 2021, almost September. I'm still using the batteries that originally came with this keyboard, so maybe they're right, although I do suspect that, how long your batteries last and whatnot really depends on your usage. The keyboard does have an auto sleep mode where it does seem to go to sleep when it's not in use. If, like me though, you don't necessarily trust the auto sleep features and try to turn off wireless keyboards when not in use, you can find a convenient on or off switch on the back here. So everything discussed up until this point can, from what I understand, be applied to both the standard version of the K580 keyboard as well as the Chrome OS edition. From here, we're going to shift our focus a bit more on the unique traits of the Chrome OS edition of the K580 keyboard. And when I say unique traits here, I mean it. The Chrome OS edition labeling here is not a marketing gimmick. Logitech has actually customized this version of the K580 keyboard to replicate the keyboard layout found on Chromebooks. Now, if you don't have much experience with Chromebooks, you won't be faulted for wondering if there is much of a difference between the keyboard layout on Chromebooks and the layout found on other laptops. The answer here is that there definitely is a difference. Unlike with keyboards that you find with Windows laptops and MacBooks, Chromebook keyboards lack the somewhat standard F1 through F12 function keys, lack a capital lock key, and obviously lack a Windows key or the Mac command key. On Chromebooks, the row where the F1 through F12 function key row can be found have been replaced by a row of custom Chrome OS-centric keys. In place of the capital lock key, you get a search key, and in place of the Windows or Mac command key, you get the Google Assistant button. Also, this isn't as important, but the alphabets on the keys are lowercased instead of uppercased on Chromebooks. So this version of the K580 keyboard has no F1 through F12 function keys, no caps lock key, no switchable Mac or Windows layout, and no uppercase alphabets on the keys. Instead, you get the aforementioned custom Chrome OS keys as well as lowercase alphabets on the keys themselves. None of the usual comforts that you may find with Logitech's other compatible with everything external keyboards are here. This has been designed for usage with Chrome OS. I know I've emphasized how geared towards Chrome OS this keyboard is, but you can still connect the Chrome OS edition of the K580 to Windows, Mac, Linux, and other non-Chrome OS systems. It's just, because of these changes to the layout, you may find yourself frustrated over the fact that this keyboard is lacking things that you have come to expect from other more standard keyboards that are out there. In fact, if you look online, you can actually find reviews from an array of confused and angry consumers who do not realize that they bought the Chrome OS edition and are furious that anyone will make a keyboard with this kind of design. Reviews that often sound something along the lines of, "Good sir, how dare you send me a preposterous keyboard such as this? Had the creators behind this atrocity never seen a keyboard before? I cannot possibly fathom a company creating a keyboard with no function keys. How am I to use my favorite keyboard shortcuts without them?" Alright, obviously I'm kidding about the voice. Well, half kidding about the voice, of course, but this actually gets to one of the main reasons why I, as a Chrome user, am deeply appreciative of the fact that this external keyboard with a Chromebook layout exists. Now, technically, like Windows or Mac users with this specific version of the K580, Chromebook users can obviously connect wireless keyboards that were made with Windows or Mac configurations to their Chromebooks or Chrome OS devices. We can do it, but not having the Chrome OS-centric keys on those keyboards means that we miss out on the useful keyboard shortcuts that are available in Chrome OS. In the same way that a lot of the Windows keyboard shortcuts utilize the function keys, a lot of the Chromebook keyboard shortcuts involve the usage of the Chrome OS-centric keys that you can find on the top row of Chromebooks. Obviously, if you don't use keyboard shortcuts on a regular basis, it might not matter whether or not you have these custom Chrome OS-centric keyboards. That might not matter at all. But once these keyboard shortcuts become a regular part of your workflow, it's very disruptive and very distracting when you can't use them. For a significant period of time, especially back when I was getting into Chromebooks, we didn't really have external keyboards that had this Chrome OS layout. If we wanted to use external keyboards with our Chromebooks, we had to simply deal with not having access to those keyboard shortcuts or having to find alternatives, more clunkier ways to get the same results while using the external keyboard. And for Chromebook users like myself, that was very annoying. And if you ask me, the K580, the Chrome OS edition of the K580, has solved a lot of this. And this sort of consideration towards the Chromebook user kind of makes this a product that truly deserves the labeling of Chrome OS edition. This gets us to the price. The K580 keyboard, the Chrome OS edition of the K580 keyboard, is priced at $49.99. I've seen it on sale for about $45 on a pretty regular basis, and I've seen it get discounted to be as low as $40. Whether or not it's discounted to be that low kind of depends on other factors like, hey, is it Black Friday or not, and stuff like that. Now, looking at the MSRP price, the $49.99 price, $49.99 or $50, let's just round up and say it like that, $50 is not cheap. There are definitely cheaper wireless keyboards out there with very similar multi-device features. But this keyboard, the Chrome OS edition anyway, is a bit unique. Since it's not necessarily fair to compare this keyboard to other regular keyboards that are currently out there, I want to compare this keyboard to the two other external wireless and Chrome OS oriented keyboards that are currently on the market. The rather popular one is from a company called Brydge, and it's called the Brydge C-Type keyboard. This one lacks a number pad, but it does come in a smaller size and a more portable design. It also comes with an internal battery which you can charge through a USB-C port. The USB-C port can also be used to connect the keyboard to a device through a USB cable, effectively making it so the keyboard has a wired mode. It's very cool, and it starts with an MSRP of $100. In recent months though, I've seen it regularly being sold for $50, so let's keep that in mind with our comparison here. The other option is the Dell wireless Chrome OS keyboard. This one is designed in a manner that is closer to that of the K580 with a number pad and a design oriented more towards desk use than portability. It also seems to have been made with a mixture of plastic and aluminum, which could mean it has better build quality than the K580. Unlike the K580 though, the keyboard can only connect to devices using an included USB dongle, and as Chrome Unboxed pointed out, there is no internal space where you can store the USB dongle when it's not in use. The Dell keyboard's MSRP is around $50, but I've seen it go on sale for prices ranging from $43 all the way down to $24. So with that context in mind, $50 for the K580 keyboard is fairly standard, and I would argue fair as far as Chrome OS keyboards go. Not to mention that depending on your needs, you can see the K580 as being a nice compromise between the Dell Chrome OS keyboard and the Brydge C-Type keyboard. The K580 can connect to devices by using either Bluetooth or a wireless USB receiver. With the Dell or the Brydge, it's usually one or the other. The K580 also has a multi-device feature that the competition currently doesn't have. With where we are in 2021 and with where we are as far as the Chrome OS keyboard market goes, the K580 stands on its own with features that really sets it apart from the rest of the competition. Which begs the question, is this worth it in 2021? Like with most things, it does depend a bit on your use case. Obviously, a big no-go with the Chrome OS edition if you're using a Windows or Mac device. Also, not the keyboard I'd go with if I wanted a portable Bluetooth keyboard. If I wanted a portable Bluetooth keyboard, I'd probably still stick with something like the Logitech K380, or if I really insisted on going with a Chrome OS-centric keyboard, I'd probably go with the Brydge keyboard. For people in the market for a nice desk keyboard to use with a Chrome OS device though, I can wholeheartedly say that the K580 keyboard is indeed worth it, and it is probably one of the best keyboard options for a solid portion of Chrome OS users right now. I mean, looking at the design, the price, as well as the competition, I can't think of a more bang for the buck, balanced Chrome OS keyboard. Not only that, I'm going to go further. I'm going to go further and say that this is one of the best Chrome OS accessories that we Chrome OS users have gotten so far. I have no idea what the future holds, but for future Chrome OS keyboards, I'd say that this Logitech K580 is the one to beat. Anyway, that's my review of the Logitech K580 wireless keyboard. If you found this video useful in any way, shape, or form, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more reviews, Chrome OS tutorials, etc. from the Octillions Tech YouTube channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button.